Welcome to our webinar. We are so excited to have you. Let's see, where's everybody calling from? I'm seeing Olivia from Grace's Table. I'm seeing Kelly from Fresno. I love that. Jessica in the house. Hey, Jessica. Guida from Nashville, Tennessee. Hello. Somebody from Denver, Michelle from Annapolis, Anita from Minnesota, Katie from San Diego. Y'all, SoCal in the house. Come on, Danny from Helping Hands. Y'all, we are all over the place, and I am loving it. The people are in the chat. Okay, let's see. What are some of the emojis that we got going on? I'm seeing smiley faces. I'm seeing hearts. What else we got in here? We have a mind-blown emoji. I hope that's a good thing because you're just feeling so excited. I'm seeing a green heart. I love it, y'all. Y'all, if you couldn't guess from the song, my emoji is sunshine, okay? Because we have one of my favorite people in the house, okay? And today is going to be so good. And also, y'all, what does the sun represent? The sun represents light, it represents energy, it represents passion, and those are all of the things that you need to be a magnetic fundraiser, y'all. You need those things to be a magnetic fundraiser to draw people to you and to turn your donors into ambassadors, y'all. And we are going to go through all of that and so much more today. And I am super excited. Y'all, you already know who I am by now, okay? I'm Floyd. I oversee community and partnerships here at Give Better. I'm calling you from New York. I love working with grassroots organizations, helping with crowdfunding and fundraising. And y'all, if you haven't heard the news, I'm speaking at Icon in New Orleans this weekend. So if you're going to be there, please make sure you let me know on LinkedIn, email, whatever it might be, so we can see and finally meet in person. And y'all, if you want to connect with me, if you don't connect with me on LinkedIn, we're being trendy, okay? We're trying something. I got a little QR code here, so scan that QR code, follow me on LinkedIn and all the different socials and things, and let's keep this conversation going. We're going to talk about it towards the end, but if you like something that I say, Mallory says, let us know on LinkedIn. Let's keep the conversation going. I always say that your yes moment is not just for you, okay? Your yes is not just for you. So if you take something here and you learn something, pass it on, people. Let's keep the knowledge going. Let's keep the knowledge in the community growing, okay? Obviously, you know, Give Better, we are the most loved fundraising platform, but don't just take my word for it. Y'all know I love Give Better, but the G2 has spoken, okay? The people have spoken, all right? Check out our reviews and leave us a review. If you use Give Better yourself, leave us a review on G2. Let us know why you love the platform so we can bring other people alongside as well. Okay, y'all, I'm going quickly because I want to get into the details today. I want to get into the facts, which y'all know the housekeeping rules. The recording and slides will be emailed to you. So don't worry if you miss a couple things. Let me tell you, Mallory gonna give you a quote, okay? Mallory gonna give you a quote, y'all. So if you miss something, don't worry, because these slides are gonna be sent directly to you. Use the Q&A, okay? We're gonna have a whole section for Q&A at the end. So use the Q&A at the end, the Q&A section, so you can leave your questions and I can see them. Because I know y'all, we love this chat, okay? So I don't wanna miss your question. Comment, use emojis in the chat. Listen, we love to talk back to y'all. So if something hits and you feel it, put it in the chat and let's keep the conversation going. Obviously, keep the chat kind and respectful. And before you send a message, make sure you're hitting to everyone and not just hosts and panelists, okay? I already gotten a couple of direct messages, so make sure you hit it to everyone so we can see it, so we can feel the energy, we can feel the love, and we can keep it all going, okay? Hey, Melissa, I see you from Dallas. We're going to go through some welcoming introductions, announcements, and updates. We're going to go into all of the details from Mallory on how to become a magnetic fundraiser, Q&A, and then we're going to do a couple reminders towards the end. Y'all, we have some amazing giveaways. One thing that we're trying to do these next couple of months is how do we add more giveaways? Because we love y'all. Listen, I'm not just talking about it online. Y'all my people. I say give it a fan for a reason, okay? And what do you do for your fam that you love? You give back, okay? So we have a couple of giveaways for you this month. One is the Changemaker Conference. It's a virtual conference. It's amazing. I'm speaking, Mallory's speaking. They have an amazing lineup, and we are giving away 2 free tickets, y'all. Grace is going to drop a link in the chat. She's going to drop a form a couple of times. If you're interested in any of these giveaways, make sure you fill that out because we can't scroll too much and see who all the people there. So make sure you fill that out and you let us know your email and all that information. Grace will drop that in the chat. But y'all, another giveaway is the fundraising coloring book, y'all. We have an amazing coloring book. First of all, it says an in-kind gift to your soul. I don't know about you, but my soul needs a gift, okay? My soul says yes, okay? I need a gift from my soul. And this coloring book, I got an advanced copy, y'all, and let me tell you, it is that book. Okay, it is that book, y'all. It's gonna refresh you, it's gonna refuel you, it's gonna be soothing for your soul. So make sure if you're interested in getting one of those, make sure you fill it out. Oh, I'm seeing it says that they can't open up the form. Grace, will you help them out and make it public? Don't worry, y'all. We'll drop it again soon. It'll be public soon, okay? So make sure you fill that out so we can get you the information if you're one of our lucky winners. Now, speaking of something good for the soul, we have Mallory. Let me tell you, not just her words, okay, but her essence is going to fuel you and tool you today, okay? You're gonna leave feeling engaged, equipped, and empowered, y'all, and it's gonna be so amazing. Mallory is from Berkeley, California. She's the CEO and founder of Mallory Erickson Coaching. She has started the amazing Power Partners formula. I feel the power as I speak it out loud. She helps nonprofits fundraise more from the right funders so they can stop hounding people for money and helping them in the long term. And we work with Mallory on everything from what the fundraising podcast to our upcoming Thankathon. Now, y'all, this Thankathon, I'm gonna give you a little sneak peek. We're gonna talk about it towards the end, okay? But this Thankathon is happening on May 12th, okay? What it's going to entail is so good. You're gonna be able to actually dump into your donor database, and we're gonna lead you through a process of actually thanking your donors, calling them up on the phone, engaging with them on a deeper level. One person even got a $10,000 donations from this Thankathon. So if you wanna be in that number, y'all, make sure you register. And again, we'll drop the link towards the end of the, 100,000. Excuse me, let's add a couple zeros, y'all. Let's do that. Listen, I want to be in that number, okay? So with no further ado, let me bring up my good friend. Okay, let me add your spotlight. Let me stop sharing. Mallory, can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can. I am energized. I'm excited. Is Floyd's energy just like the most contagious thing in the world? Because I was a little bit sleepy and now I am here and I am ready to roll. So thank you for starting us off with that.
I love that. Mallory, what is one good thing that you have what's one good thing you're coming on this call with?
Oh my gosh, there's so many good things right now. I'm really pumped to do the Thankathon with you. And I just being reminded that woman raised $100,000 gift just from one of our Thankathons makes me so happy. And so I hope you guys will join us for that. That's my good thing, the unexpected money that rolls in.
I love that. One of the things that I really, truly appreciate about you, every single time that we talk, I not only leave feeling energized and happier and more light, but one thing that I love is that you actually hear me and you hear your people, you hear your clients. And I think that is one of the most essential elements for a fundraiser. So many times we're doing all the speaking, we're doing the talking, we're doing the donate, give. But one thing that you focus on in your essence is what can I give? How can I serve? And y'all about to get ready to get something good today, okay? If you are ready for today's session, I want you to type ready in all capital locks in that chat. I want you to see ready from everybody. Mallory, I want you to take this information in. I want you to take this energy in. And with no further ado, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, Floyd. Although he is a very hard act to follow. And I'm just going to say, I literally thought about taking voice lessons before this webinar because I was like, how am I going to sing little parts throughout my webinar? But I did not take voice lessons. So I will spare all of you my singing. But if we have not met before, it is so nice to meet you. My name is Mallory Erickson. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And if you don't know my background, I, like so many people, became an accidental fundraiser. And I want you to tell me in the chat, like, are you an accidental fundraiser too? Because when I started in the nonprofit sector, I didn't really know that as you start getting promoted up in nonprofit, you tend to find yourself in a role that requires a lot of fundraising. And so first for me, it was a managing director role, then an executive director role, and it came with huge fundraising responsibilities. And at first, honestly, I had a lot of high hopes about how I was going to be as a fundraiser. I thought I was going to see really consistent fundraising success, that I was going to be this empowered and confident leader, that I was never going to work more than 40 hours a week, and I was going to have all these donors coming to me. But the truth was very different. And I call this phase of my life the impact report fake time in my life, because I felt like I had all this pressure to put up this appearance everywhere, like I had it all together. But the reality was that things were a constant hustle. I didn't have a donor pipeline that I trusted. I was working 12 to 15-hour days sometimes. I was choosing my organization over my friends, my family, my health. I even developed really chronic pain in my neck, and I was miserable. I felt really alone. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't think I can stay in the nonprofit sector. Like, if this is what leadership in this sector looks like, it involves this fundraising thing that is so cringy and I can't figure out how to make it work for me, I think I might need to leave the sector. But I knew I didn't want to leave the nonprofit sector. I'd spent my whole career here. So I decided instead to go down this research rabbit hole for 3 months, testing all these different types of fundraising strategies. I got trained and certified as an executive coach. I got trained in habit and behavior design and design thinking. At the time, not all of that was related to my fundraising, but those frameworks came together and fundamentally changed the way that I showed up as a fundraiser. And I remember this week where it like all finally clicked. I got 7 donor meetings secured in 1 week. It was like an 87% return rate on my email outreach, which ultimately led to more than $450,000 in funding. This was for a pretty small organization. And I was like, okay, this is it. Because not only was that the financial reality, but I started to feel fundamentally different as a fundraiser. That is what ultimately led to me creating my signature method, which is called the Power Partners Formula, which combines executive coaching tools, modern fundraising strategy, habit and behavior design, and design thinking. And everything that we are going to be talking about today is inspired by this formula, inspired by this combination of tools. And you're going to see why this is so important for your fundraising success. Okay. I'm so excited that I'm already out of breath. So let me take a tiny sip of water, and then we are going to dive in because I have so much I want to give you in our time together today. Okay. So the title of this is all about magnetic fundraising, how to be a magnetic fundraiser. So I want to start with just this understanding. Magnetic fundraising is about connection. And when I think about connection, I'm thinking about the psychological, biological, neurological, the things that make us feel connected to one another, the things that make you feel connected to Floyd on this webinar, the things that make you feel connected to this community. That's magnetic energy. And there's something really important that we're going to talk about together today that's happening when you feel that, when you have that experience. And that is also how money moves. That is how great fundraising happens. And that is how your donors become ambassadors. But before we can talk about the tips and strategies for being a magnetic fundraiser, I have to start with the thing I always start with, and I'm totally fine being a broken record on this because it is so important. I need you to understand what holds us back as people from being able to connect. So what you're looking at right now is the cognitive behavior loop. And if we were in person and I knew how many people here were familiar with my work, I'd probably have you yell this out. But the cognitive behavior loop is the concept that our thoughts and our beliefs inform how we feel, and then ultimately how we show up, the energy, the actions, and that's what leads to our results. So I'm going to say that again. Our thoughts and our beliefs lead to how we feel, and then ultimately our energy and our actions and our results. So if we're feeling in our bodies, in our emotions, super awkward, super uncomfortable with something we're doing as a fundraiser, that feeling is linked to thoughts and beliefs that we're holding about fundraising. Maybe it's like, oh, we don't deserve that amount of funding for this, or, oh, we're not ready to fundraise for that program because we don't have X, Y, and Z figured out. Oh, Sally's going to be so mad at me for reaching out to her again this soon after the event. Those thoughts and those beliefs, that's what creates our discomfort. And then when we have that discomfort in our body and we haven't addressed those thoughts and beliefs, how do we show up? Well, a lot of the time we don't show up at all. We've made up a reason why we shouldn't show up. But other times we show up in this really kind of like inauthentic, unaligned way. We don't feel in a flow state. We feel a lot of friction. We feel a lot of resistance, right? That's how I primarily felt as a fundraiser, a tremendous amount of resistance. You know, those little items that have been on your to-do list for a very long time, and you might call them simple tasks, like the tasks themselves shouldn't be that long. Send that email to that donor, respond to that thing, finish this thing up. Those tasks likely hold emotions around them that make the tasks hard to do. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later. And likely you're holding thoughts and beliefs about those tasks that are holding you back from taking that action and taking that action with the energy you want to take. And so I really want you to understand this cognitive behavior loop, because as we start to go into these strategies, you might hear in the moment, or you might hear later after this webinar, all this limiting beliefs or self-doubt, or, oh, I can't do that because, or you yeah, but yourself. And so I want you to start to be aware of this loop while we're in this training today. And you can yeah, but me in the chat. Go ahead. Say, that sounds great, Mallory, but what about this? And then I can coach you live around that, because it's really important that we understand the way that this impacts our resistance to taking the next right fundraising action. And when I started to really look at the cognitive behavior loop for myself, the biggest thing that I discovered was that I thought that fundraising was hounding people to give you money that they didn't really want to give you, and figuring out the right way to maybe not really trick them, but convince them to give you this thing that they didn't want to give you. And when I actually took a step back and I said, actually, like, what is great fundraising really? This became my mantra, which is now the mantra behind Power Partners, which is that great fundraising is not an ask, it's an offer. It's an opportunity. It's about inviting people into your organization. It's about vulnerability. It's about connection. It's about partnership. And think about how that belief, those beliefs around fundraising, would radically shift how you feel as a fundraiser and how you show up as a fundraiser. So I said at the beginning, I said, isn't Floyd's energy so contagious? Well, here's the thing I want you to know. Your energy is contagious too, no matter what. When your energy is positive and effusive, like we saw Floyd start this webinar, that's contagious. When your energy is resistant, that's also contagious. The way that we show up, the energy that we show up with, becomes the energy that the people around us often adopt. And so if we want money to move, we have to make some conscious decisions about how we want to show up, about the energy that we want to bring to different relationships, because donor behavior is a response behavior. So we're talking on this webinar about how do you turn your donors into ambassadors for your mission, okay? So turn your donors into ambassadors for your mission. You're trying to influence donor behavior to become ambassadors for your mission and likely help you raise more money. Well, the donor's ability to do that, or their decision to do that, their behavior, depends on one particular thing: your behavior, fundraisers' behavior. And I don't say that from a position of like, oh my gosh, you should feel so much pressure, you're responsible for everything. I know that's how it feels. I want you to feel it though from a sense of empowerment. You have tremendous influence on what happens with your donors, on how engaged they feel, on whether or not they want to become ambassadors for your organization. But we have to help you understand that fundraiser psychology, how you feel, what you think about fundraising, your beliefs about value and self-worth and money, those things influence how you're going to show up, the energy that you show up with. And then that's going to be contagious. Okay, so last year I talked about on this webinar this idea of catabolic and anabolic energy. We're not going to go into it in too much detail today, but I wanted to give you a quick refresher, because for some folks it really helps them understand this idea of contagious energy. Okay, so, and the chat is going fast, you guys, and I'm not good at reading and talking at the same time. So I just want to say, if you have some things in there for me, I will respond to them later, and I will make sure to get to questions at the end. Okay, so for the purposes of this webinar, I want you to just have a concept of two different types of energy: catabolic energy and anabolic energy. So anabolic energy describes energy that's constructive, expanding, fueling, healing, growth-oriented. Floyd showed up with some serious anabolic energy today, right? And anabolic energy, when we feel it in our body, helps us move forward and achieve positive, long-term, successful results, okay? And it's also used in leading others in the same direction, turning your donors into ambassadors. Catabolic energy, on the other hand, is draining, resisting, contracting energy. Sometimes we can get like a little boost of energy from catabolic energy, like anger, or when we're in a stressful situation, like our nervous system can send us into like fight mode for a second, right? And that can be this like action-oriented activity. But over time, catabolic energy is really draining. And sometimes it feels like dread, like avoidance, that sort of like quicksand feeling. And ultimately, when we are in a chronic catabolic state for a long period of time, it leads us to burnout. So I just want to give you a second to tap into your own energy awareness. I want you to think about when you most recently experienced catabolic energy. What was that experience like? What did that energy feel like in your body? And how did it influence your performance? How did that experience influence the actions that you took or the results that you got? I just want you to give a quick second of noticing to this. And then I want you to do the same thing to anabolic energy. And I know I'm moving quickly because I just put maybe too much information inside this webinar, but I want you, if you want to go back to this later and give yourself some more time for reflection, I want you to do the same thing with anabolic energy. I want you to recall when you most recently experienced anabolic energy, probably the first 5 minutes of this webinar with Floyd. And I want you to think about what was the experience like? And what did that energy feel like in your body? I saw someone in the chat say, oh, I'm awake now, right? And think about how that influences your performance, your attention, right? Your engagement, okay? So I want you to give a quick reflection to that. Awareness of our energy gives us important information. So if you're like, oh man, I'm noticing a lot of catabolic energy platforms or patterns, that is great information. I do not want you to go into like beating yourself up about that. First of all, we all experience catabolic energy. We all experience all types of energy, and it's a spectrum. It's not black or white. There's 7 different styles of energy. We are always moving up and down them. But I want you to just start to notice how energy shows up in your body, okay? How does it show up in your body? How does it influence your results? Because here's the reality. We are obsessed in this sector about fundraising strategy. We want more templates, more strategy, more people to tell us what to do. And I get it. When we are overwhelmed and our nervous system is activated and we are in catabolic energy, we just want someone to tell us what to do. But here's the thing, our ability to do the thing that person told us to do, our ability to implement that strategy is impacted by the narratives, by the thoughts, the beliefs that are inside our head. And so it's so important that we are thinking, but I'm about to go into the 5 strategies, the 5 pieces here, but I want to make sure that we get as many of those lines through as possible by removing some of the limiting beliefs to utilizing what we're going to be talking about. Floyd, sorry, I've been talking about you a lot. You're like the perfect example of anabolic energy. So I can't help it.
I love it. Well, I just wanted to highlight one thing that you said that really stands out. So Katie Titus in the chat said, I feel anabolic energy when I'm video editing and creating content for my nonprofit that tells a great story and engages our audience. And I really want to highlight that component right there. Yes, because the creating content and the video editing, but I want you to understand for yourself, when do you actually feel it? Mallory mentioned awareness is key. So I'll give you a practical example of this, right? I actually just finished reading the book, Designing Your Life. It's an amazing book. Check it out if you're interested. But one of the exercises that they make you do and they ask you to do is that you actually have to track for 2 weeks the things that bring you to life. You need to actually track what brings you to life. Where do you feel it in your body? What are you doing? What happened right before it? What happened right after that? And let me tell you, that single exercise changed so much for me. It changed how I showed up at work. It changed what projects I worked on. It changed how I even approached the exercises that I didn't love so much, right? Because I realized and I understood what is actually bringing me to life? How do I incorporate it more? And how do I use it to help and propel everybody else? And so I think that's so incredibly important, because so many of us feel like when we're showing up in fundraising, like, this is dreadful, people don't like me, all the limiting beliefs that Mallory talked about. But if you channel that anabolic energy and you channel the things that bring you to life in the things that might take it away from that leg, you'll see success. So I love that.
Yes, yes. And just noticing, and like I said before, awareness with self-compassion. Okay. Because one of the things about awareness that can happen is that we start to be aware of things and then we start to beat ourselves up about things. Okay. And so awareness with self-compassion, just noticing, and then celebrate, like, hey, I noticed how I was feeling right now. Like, I know, like, good job, Mallory. Like, you were aware of your emotions in this situation. Not like you have to be, your emotions and your energy always has to be perfect and on and all of those things, but that your awareness, like giving yourself that recognition for just having that awareness, can be huge. So I love, love, love that Floyd added that. And Floyd, I'm going to bring you right back in 1 second, because I feel like you have to help me talk about this part, because this is like your zone of genius. So I want to start, before we walk into the strategies, like, what does it mean for a donor to be an ambassador to your organization? And when Floyd and I were talking about this before the webinar, we were really talking about the difference between, there's a big difference between building a community versus building an audience. And when we're talking about ambassadorship, when we're talking about your donors taking on different types of leadership, we're talking about them being a part of your community, not being an audience member to your organization. And so I think this has to do, your ambassadors, people who are your ambassadors, are helping raise awareness about your organization. They're helping network your organization around your community, or whatever that looks like for you. They're offering their expertise a lot of the time. They're doing advocacy work, and they also might be fundraising. And so I also want to make sure we're not using the word ambassadorship and fundraising interchangeably. We'll talk about the role of fundraising in ambassadorship, but I really want to highlight that being an ambassador for your organization is this very active role. And so Floyd, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this as well.
Can you see me? Am I here?
Yes, you're here. I see you.
Okay. I'm not sure everybody else can see me, but I hope so. But one of the things that I really want to highlight, and we're actually going to start doing some more.
Oh, wait, they cannot see you.
They cannot see. What about now? Can you see me now?
Okay, now they can.
Great.
Okay.
We're actually going to do a talk around this that I'm actually working on. But one thing that's so incredibly important is that building a community and building an audience are two different things. They are two different things. One is not better than the other, but you have to understand that building a community is about the long term, right? When you're building an audience, you're building for entertainment. When you're building a community, you're building for engagement, right? When you're building an audience, it's about the presentation. But when you're building a community, it's about progression. How are we progressing together? How we have shared values together? How are we going to something together? Now, you're getting stressed out because you're trying to build an audience on social media. You're trying to grow your email base. You're also trying to grow an audience and get your fundraising up. You're focusing on the number. You're saying, what's my end of year number and the thing that I'm working towards? But no, a community is, hey, how are we working to eradicate this problem? How are we working with mutual values to get to the same destination? How are we working to see a better tomorrow, right? And that is the key differentiator. And your ambassadors will come from your community every single time.
Okay, love all of it. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. Also, like, you guys in the chat right now, you are demonstrating what community looks like, right? You're all participating, watching the way you cheer on Floyd and everything he says. Like, that's community building. So I'm excited for that webinar. Whenever they do that, I'll be attending too. But thank you, Floyd, for that. Okay, so in order for your donors to become ambassadors, there are 5 primary things that need to happen, and I'm going to go into detail about each one of them. So your donors need to know why your organization is different, and I'm going to talk about what this means in a moment. They need to understand why their involvement matters, and I'll talk about that too. They need to be able to see the impact of the organization. I'm going to give you some examples of how to do this. They need to have an easy way to engage. We're going to use some behavior and habit design here to help you understand this concept. And then they need to be reinforced and celebrated. And we're going to talk about ways to do this that feel good both to the organization and to your donors, to your ambassadors that are involved. Okay. So number one, you need to be able to make it clear why your organization is different. Why does your organization stand out? And I'm going to say something that might be a little bit hard to hear, but this is super important. A lot of times we do not differentiate ourselves because we are afraid of coming on too strong, because what if some of our donors don't like what we have to say? And last week on the fundraising on my podcast, we did an incredible mini series with Give Butter's support. And I interviewed Julia Campbell, who's amazing. And she talked about this in her episode in the mini series, and how if no one is disagreeing with you, then you really aren't saying anything at all. And likely people aren't paying attention. So we need to be a little bit less afraid of having some people not like what we have to say, because when we are afraid of coming on too strong, we keep things super neutral to play it safe. Okay. And let me tell you, neutral might be in when it comes to paint, but it is not when it comes to nonprofit. Okay. Because it actually just means that we've made things bland. Right? And we are in an attention economy right now, okay? And it is so much worse to be bland than to have people not like you. Because for every person who doesn't like you, who doesn't agree, there are going to be 3 people that love you. And you don't need a bunch of lukewarm supporters. If you are here right now, it is because you want ambassadors for your mission. I went to Michigan. Maybe that's why that came out. You need ambassadors for your mission. Okay. You need power partners. And so you need to be able to differentiate yourself and make that clear. Yes, I love it. Go blue. Wow. That made me so happy. Okay. This was the direct quote from Julia. If you're not getting any negative feedback, then no one is paying attention. Okay. If we try to be for everyone, we end up being for no one. I wonder if anyone on this webinar can literally name this cracker. Okay. I cannot. Okay. So but if I showed you a Cheez-It right now, I bet you most people on this webinar, water crackers, Tam Tam. Okay. Well, yeah, lots of different names. Okay, so that would be confusing. Imagine if we were like, okay, go to this cracker's website and make a donation. How many different crackers would get a donation? Okay, you have to stand out. Okay, a water cracker, nasty cracker. Okay, all right, thank you, everyone. Okay, so the first piece is you have to differentiate. You have to make it clear why your organization stands out, because we have to draw them in and make it clear why they are an ambassador for your organization, okay? Your organization. We know, actually, I'm going to say one more thing. We know that right now, a lot of the data is showing that people are identifying more with issues than they are with organizations. Okay, they're identifying themselves more with issue areas than with organizations, which means if you want people to be identifying with your specific organization, then you really have to stand out. You really have to make it clear why you're different and why being a part of your work should be a part of their identity beyond just them caring about the issue area that you address itself. Okay. All right. I love that, Amy. Okay. So number 2, make things relevant to donors and show why their involvement matters. So let me explain both things. Okay. So honestly, when I was a fundraiser, no one really talked about relevance to me, especially when it came to creating urgency. So one of the things that gets people to decide whether or not they want to be involved with your organization or take action with your organization or donate is how we answer the question, why should they take that action right now? And the number one way to create non-cringy urgency, none of that fake urgency stuff, is through relevance. Why is this relevant to them right now? Okay. And this goes back to specificity in a lot of ways, because you have an important choice. You get to hold one of these to help funders find your organization, a torch or a laser. So let's say you're up in a helicopter trying to find someone in this field below, and you see them standing there with a torch. Maybe they're not the only one. There's lots of people around. Like, you don't know for sure, like, is that torch for me? But if you get a laser pointed up at you, you're like, oh yeah, they're talking to me. And we get to hold one of these things. And so we have to decide, when we try to be everything for everyone, we are holding a torch. And we are not telling everyone, hey, I'm talking specifically to you. You need to identify the people who are aligned with your organization and point your laser at them kindly. You need to get their attention, and you need to be talking to them. Your mission is a part of their identity. It can become a part of their identity. And a very core human need of ours is to have our identity validated. Okay, so like I said before, there is a growing trend that people are starting to identify with issue areas more than they're identifying with organizations. But if you do step one, if you make it clear how you stand out, how you're different, you build that identity with the donor, then your mission can start to become part of their identity. And a core human need is to have their identity validated. And so here's one very simple way to do this. Personalization at scale. So I see a lot of things out there like, we need volunteers for, okay? I get emails, we need volunteers for this thing. This might seem so simple to even be giving you this advice, but I see these blanket statements happening all the time, as opposed to things like, we wanted to reach out to you today because you have showed interest in X, Y, and Z, or because we know you care about X. We reached out to you today because we wanted to talk to all the moms of toddlers in our neighborhood about blank. Why me? Point the laser at me. How do I not just feel like everybody else, like you're just standing there with a torch and anyone who wants to come up can? Okay, it needs to be relevant to the person. Why does it matter to me? And it needs to be clear that I'm the person you want to show up, right? Do I matter? Does it matter that I'm there? Okay, this is all about belonging and creating memory. And in every way we show up as fundraisers, we want to be cultivating that belonging and cementing that memory. And I'm going to say one other thing here that might be kind of hard to hear. We need to make sure that we are doing this in the moment and not just in our marketing. So I've had things happen where people very specifically invite me to an event. But then I show up at the event and I can't find anyone there that knows me or that I know. And I'm like, why am I even here in the first place? And it's like, gosh, they were so good at marketing to make me feel like I was supposed to be here. But now I'm here and I'm not really sure, like, am I supposed to be here? So I want to make sure that this is why, like, when you're doing follow-up after gifts, like, we want to make sure that not just on the fundraising acquisition side and the marketing side, we're helping build identity and belonging. We want to make sure we're doing it at each step in our relationship building process, because the moment we feel like we've lost that sense of belonging, that our identity isn't really there, we're not really seen, right? That can create a lot of resistance between our desire to engage in the future. This was another one of the mini-series episodes that I really highly recommend you go listen to with Sarah Lomelin. And she talks about how you can create these types of touch points, thinking outside the box and doing things that people really remember. So maybe we can drop that, that link in the chat as well. There's so many tips in there in terms of how to build identity and relationships and all of those things. I'm giving you kind of the high level points right now. Okay. The third piece, and this is one of my favorite tips actually of all time, which is you need to help them see the impact of the organization and the how. Okay, so I'm going to maybe say something else. You're going to want to throw some tomatoes at me, but hold on a second. You need to be more specific in the way you talk about your organization. Okay, you need to be more specific in the way that you talk about your organization. I have been to way too many events where I have heard something like this. I know everyone here cares about the mission. No, Please never say this again, okay? You, in your head, nonprofit professional, might have your mission statement front and ready in your brain. Your donors, your ambassadors do not. You need to be more specific about how you talk about the organization. I know that everybody here cares about eradicating child homelessness in our community. We are so grateful that you are committed to blank. What makes your organization different? Okay. I asked one time on a webinar, like, why do people give to your organization? And the amount of people that said in the chat, because of our mission. I want you to start to practice, not just using our mission. I want you to start to practice getting really specific. Even when people like me ask you a question like that, why do people support you? They support us because we do blank differently than blank, and we see results like blank. I want you to start talking about impact way more than you're talking about your mission, okay? And then I want you to infuse that into how you start to build relationships and how you show something called operational transparency. So let me talk to you about both of those things, okay? So a lot of times when we are thinking about this relationship building element, okay, we are thinking about this sort of basic know, like, trust, okay, which comes from marketing. And it's the idea that people need to know, like, and trust us in order for them to give to our organization. But this is like the baseline. And I want to be clear. I think sometimes we take know, like, trust and we're like, oh, it just means we need to be the nicest people. Now, I'm not telling you to not be nice, but nice is not a brand, okay? And nice is not a differentiator, and nice is not going to help you stand out, okay? So you need to build know, like, trust in a much deeper way, okay? Know is actually built through real stories, real people, okay? The more authenticity and less perfectionism, the better. Okay, like is about vulnerability and respecting the relationship, really building that in, okay? And then trust is about sharing challenges and mistakes. And we're going to talk about perfectionism later, don't worry. Okay, but I want you to start to think about, they need to start to build this relationship with you if they're going to go out in the world and talk about why your organization matters, why it's different. This is going to help them build an emotional connection to your organization. And then they need to be able to talk about the how. How do you have this impact? Okay, so this is how they're building Know, Like, Trust 2.0 is how they build an emotional connection to the impact of their organization. But how do you help them see the impact of your organization? That is through something called operational transparency, okay? So you guys maybe have noticed in a lot of different things that you use that a lot of apps these days show you a ton of operational transparency, right? So here's an example of the Lyft app, okay? If you've ever used a ride share, you open your phone and you start to see, okay, where are you going? You can see all the little cars around you. Then you select a car, you watch it coming to you the whole time. You see when it's close, it pings you, okay? And then when a car has changed, you get a notification about it. That's operational transparency. And this builds trust. Okay. And this helps people see your organization. So you can be doing this too. We are so obsessed in this sector of showing impact as the last milestone. Look what we did. No, walk them through how you're doing what you're doing. Okay. We cannot wait for a once a year impact report to tell people what you did. Show them how you're doing it. Take them along on the journey in totally imperfect, authentic ways. I saw this happening with a cell phone video camera and a headlamp the other day with an organization that works in Tanzania. They were showing how computers were getting delivered literally in the middle of the night. That's operational transparency. And that's what starts to move donors into ambassadors. Okay. Yeah. And the ratings. Okay. All the things. Okay. Oh, you guys, I put way too many things inside here, but I just want to give you all the information. Okay, so number 4, give people an easy way to engage and take on leadership. This one is so important, okay? Yeah. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and I'm going to give you a really important takeaway. So in habit and behavior design, we know that in order for any action to take place, you need 3 things: enough motivation, the ability to take that action, and a prompt, okay? And it happens on a spectrum. So anytime you are asking donors to take an action, sign a petition, come to this event, ask your friend to come to this event with you, you want to think about how easy am I making it for them to take this action? Am I prompting them to take this action? And then you have to think about motivation. So motivation is the relationship between hope and fear. Hope drives motivation up. Fear drives motivation down. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. Here's the model. Hope drives motivation up. Fear drives motivation down. Okay, which means if there is more fear, you are less likely to get over the action line, even if the action is easy to do, and even if you've prompted your donors to do it. Okay, so a lot of times, I said at the very beginning, ambassadorship is not interchangeable for fundraising. Okay. If you start with a fundraising ask, if you're like, okay, I watched Mallory's webinar and now we're going to turn our donors into ambassadors and we're going to do it by asking them to fundraise for us. If you start with a fundraising ask, you are starting with the hardest behavior. Okay. No matter how simple you make that fundraising ask, even if it's just forward this link, because simple and easy are not the same thing. A lot of fundraising actions are simple. They are not easy because, like we talked about at the very beginning with the cognitive behavior loop, they produce a lot of fear. They are going to drive motivation down. So when you're thinking about how to scale how to have a ladder of engagement for your ambassadorship program, I want you to think about what are actually the easiest actions for people to do at first. And then as they build their ambassadorship with the organization, as they get more and more involved, their motivation levels are going to go up. And once they are more deeply engaged, then you can invite them to take fundraising actions, but please do not start with it. It's really going to hurt their engagement. It's the hardest way to start. Okay, are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? I know I'm moving fast. This is the fifth one, and then I'm going to talk about one more thing, and then we'll have some time for some questions and wrap up. Okay, you guys are still here with me. Okay. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So number 5, ensure there is reinforcement and celebration. Okay. And this goes a little bit with the prompt from the habit and behavior model. Okay. So behaviors do not work like we tell somebody, hey, we need you when you're out in the community to talk about our organization, and then think that we can say nothing again. And that's just going to happen. When they're at networking events, they're going to randomly start talking about your organization. It's not how behavior works, right? Because there was no prompt. How are they going to remember? Every action that we take, the relationship between the ability to take that action, their motivation to take that action, and a prompt. Now, if somebody brings up the problem in the community that your organization addresses while they're at that networking event, then sure, they might talk about your organization because they've been prompted by that topic coming up in front of them. But I want you to understand that repetition of connection points and reinforcement is really, really important to build ambassadorship. Your donors want connection. I said that at the very beginning, right? Magnetic fundraising is about connection, and your donors want connection, but connection happens over touch points, multiple touch points. And so figure out your moves management pipeline when it comes to ambassadorship, right? Identify the moments that matter that you want to be tracking and make it easy to update however you do that. And then I really recommend that you create an ongoing ritual or group habit around checking in on how that process is being used and updated. So think about all the things you would like an ambassador to do. Okay, if you're not familiar with moves management, think about over the course of the year, what are all the things that you would like an ambassador to do? And then I want you to sort of scale those in order from easiest to hardest, calendar those out. Think about how you're creating moments that matter around those different activations, around those different invitations, right? And then keep it top of mind when you're in your staff meetings. Maybe you have 5 minutes to talk about, hey, what was one of the prompts for our ambassadors recently? How are we staying top of mind? What's been happening, right? And for both them and for you, habits are cemented when we celebrate the behavior instead of the outcome. I'm going to say that one again. Habits are cemented when we celebrate the behavior instead of the outcomes. So let's say you've given your ambassadors, you're asking your ambassadors to invite people to an advocacy event, okay? What we often do is we measure how many people came to that advocacy event. But that is actually not what cements their habit of inviting their people to things. What cements their habit of inviting people to things is celebrating their behavior of asking people to come to that event. Does that make sense? Habits are cemented when we celebrate the behavior that we are asking the person to take instead of the outcome. So we want to be giving positive reinforcement, celebration, something called shine. If you look at the BJ Fogg episode that I shared a little bit before, that's what's going to actually build the habit. And the same thing is true for you, okay? So if you guys are just measuring your outcomes based on what your ambassadors did, so I only get to celebrate myself when, you know, this many ambassadors do something, then you're going to have a hard time continuing that habit of engaging your ambassadors. But if you celebrate every time you send an email to your ambassadors, every time you invite your ambassadors to something, that is much more likely to cement the habit. Okay, you guys are going to get the slides. So here's some ways to come together to practice celebration. I'm getting a time warning. So I want to make sure I get to talk to you about this, because folks, sit down for this one, okay? Nothing kills ambassadorship like perfectionism. Again, I'm going to say that again. Nothing kills ambassadorship like perfectionism. You are asking your people, I know, I'm sorry, maybe that went in the gut to some people. Okay, me too. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I totally get it. But I just need you to know, if you are going to ask people to take actions on behalf of the organization, you have to be willing to let go of the perfectionism. Because here's what happens. Perfectionism leads to fear of failure, lack of adaptability, decreased motivation, lack of collaboration. It is the number one thing that will make your donors, your ambassadors, shut down and not want to work with your organization anymore, okay? So some of the ways to do this are to address perfectionist tendencies by setting realistic expectations, make actions and behaviors smaller, okay? So make sure that what you're giving ambassadors is a step, not a project, okay? Make sure what you're giving your ambassadors is a step and a behavior and not a project. Make sure that you are tracking progress and actions instead of outcomes, and create a culture of feedback and learning, and celebrate failure. And you all need to go too, right? I want you to think like your ambassadors are nervous. They're nervous to make a mistake. They don't know as much about the organization as you. So both how you celebrate your own failure, your own mistakes, is going to help them be able to embrace less perfectionist tendencies and demonstrate self-compassion. Because let me tell you something, if you say, you know what, I'm going to be so compassionate with my ambassadors, but they watch you beating yourself up for a mistake you made, they don't think it's an organization where they can make a mistake, no matter what you are saying to them. If you demonstrate to them you beating yourself up for a mistake in front of them, they are not going to believe that it is an organization where it is safe to try new things. So you need to model this. Okay. Whew. All right, we're about to go for some Q&A. I just want to tell you, everything that's in here is from my signature program, the Power Partners Formula, which the doors are currently closed to, but they are about to reopen with something very special, which includes on-demand coaching from me. So if you are interested in potentially working with me, being inside this incredible community of fundraisers, fundraising fundamentally differently, join the waitlist over at MalloryErickson.com/waitlist. Okay, Floyd, how'd I do?
I literally can't even, like, there is just so much in there. You left us all speechless with that perfectionist. I'm sitting here like, wait a second, like, that's my whole life. That's like, listen, this was everything. All right, I'm not gonna talk. I want to just jump into some of these questions because there's a lot. Okay, I took some screenshots because some of y'all didn't use the Q&A, but it's okay. I love you anyway, and I took pictures. So one is from Bijan. How do we remove the resistance around asking for money? I think you gave a lot of good steps here, but I think that this part was nuance, especially if we are the founder and emotionally connected to the organization?
Okay. So this is a long answer. So I would say this is something I talk about a lot on LinkedIn and Instagram. So if you follow me on any of those places, there will be a lot of tips around this. I think this comes from a few things. Part of it is connected to our beliefs about money. Part of it is connected to our beliefs about self-worth. Part of it is connected to our beliefs about philanthropy, like other people wanting to invest in building the world that they want to see. And then part of it is a muscle to build. I have asked people for money thousands of times. I still get butterflies in my belly. That's okay. I think part of it is knowing this is a little bit uncomfortable. There's a lot of stigma about money in our society. There's a lot of stigma about fundraising in our society. Like, how many of us have crossed the street when a canvasser has been there and pretended to be on a phone call? Like, we know, okay, that there is an uncomfortable culture around fundraising and it impacts us, and that's okay. So acknowledge and validate how you feel. Know that feelings of discomfort are uncomfortable and that part of it's going to be a muscle to build, but that people want to build the world that you are trying to build with you.
They're trying to build it with you. I love that. And I would also highlight what you talked about before about the anabolic and catabolic energy, right? Like, focus on what does give you life, right? And try and figure out where that translation takes place. I think that sometimes when we say, okay, fundraising is a stressful thing, you walk into it stressed. You know what I mean? You walk into it stressed, and that way you have trained your mind. And one of the things I practice every single day is affirmations. Not because I'm trying to trick myself, but one thing I always say is I'm trying to align my body and my brain to align with my belief. I want my body and my brain to align with my belief. And I think that is so incredibly important.
Yes. Can I give one more tip here for folks? One thing you can do is acknowledge and validate how you feel, then use your first name and say a positive sentence after. It's called distant self-talk. So Mallory, I can do this. Mallory, I've done this before and it's been successful. It's actually like a psychological strategy, super helpful, but such a good point, Floyd. I was helping my 3-year-old climb up a slide the other day and she was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I was like, you know, it's so much harder when you tell yourself you can't. What if we just try to do it and you say you can the whole time? Let's just try it, right? And she did it. So like, yes, your point is so important.
I love that so much. Okay, one more question. I wrote it down. Angela said, okay, how do you start finding the people who you think will identify with your cause and your mission? I think that's an easier one to answer. Kind of, we have some tidbits because there's a practical as well.
First of all, they're on your list. Like, unless you literally have 0 people on your list, in which case go to networking events, go to events of, you know, talk to like-minded organizations in the area, find tangential organizations that serve similar, probably have similar identity donors and serve potentially a similar population, but their services and their program isn't exactly the same as yours. But if you have a list, they're on your list. We have been waiting for some magical cloud to rain out new donors for us. Your people are there. Start speaking from the heart, start speaking more vulnerably, authentically, stand out, use the tips in this webinar, and you will start to see the people who are the most aligned rise to the top. You'll also see people unsubscribe. Great. People
Amen. I love the unsubscribe. Yes.
People unsubscribing is a great sign that you are starting to get really clear who is in the right place and who is not in the right place. So don't be afraid of that. The more you speak from the principles we talked about today, the more you're going to start to see the folks who are the aligned. They're the people commenting on your posts on Facebook and Instagram. They're the people clicking the links in your emails. Like, those are your people.
I love that. Mallory, can you go to the Thankathon slide? Y'all, we have so many great questions. Grace is going to take a picture of them. And if Mallory has time, we're going to send them to her so she can record a couple of responses to them. And then we can send them to all the attendees as well. So I just want to remind everybody, the party does not stop here, y'all. On May 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern, we are having a Thankathon. Mallory's going to be there. I'm going to be there. And we're going to start to dig into these things and make them real, right? We don't want just a theory. We want you to actually put it into practice. And so we're going to do a Thankathon directly directly with your donors. Share your takeaways. Next slide. Share your takeaways with us online. Tag GiveButter, tag me, tag Mallory, and make it known. We want to keep the conversation because remember, your yes is not just for you. If you learned something good today, make sure you make it known because if you're getting better and somebody else is getting better, then we are all getting better. Y'all, you can stop sharing, Mallory.
Oh, okay.
Thank you guys so much for being here. We love you. We appreciate you. GiveButter fam, we are in this together, y'all. So thank you so much. I'm excited to see how y'all are going to become magnetic. Thank you guys.